Happy Wednesday. Another Saxton podcast coming at you bright and early. Welcome, Deuce. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well. A little earlier this week as you're going out of town. But it's nice to be back with you.
Perfect timing for the followers, I think, on the old hump day. Got football tomorrow and then football Friday, Saturday, so they got this on the lack of sports day, as I call it.
Your last day to do research.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll shift gears over to golf with the Tour Championship, the last of the FedEx Cup. Give me your thoughts going into this weekend.
Yeah, so we trimmed it down to 30 guys, and they get to play for a crap ton of cash, basically, is the main incentive. I guess they get a pretty good-looking trophy, too, but I'm sure the guys don't really care about that. The usual big names are there. The coverage will be good and bad. Basically, you'll just get to see good players, but there aren't a ton of guys there, so there'll probably be lots of commercials and Nick Faldo talking type stuff. But Donald Ross, original design in Atlanta. It's where Bobby Jones grew up and played. It's where he learned the game. Reese Jones redesign. Par 70, so a little bit different. And new for this year, they flipped the nines. So instead of ending on a par 3, which was pretty boring, it was a long, straightforward par 3, so nothing really happened. It will end on a 600-yard par 5, probably reachable for about half the field if conditions are okay. So should get some more fireworks this time. Some key stats this week. I think you got to keep it in play. The rough looks pretty thick. Especially down there when you get in that Bermuda, tough to play from that. So driving into the fairways. And the biggest thing for me this week is going to be par 4 scoring average. However you play the par 4s is probably going to dictate how good your score is at the end of the week. The lack of par 5s probably hurts guys like Jason Day, Dustin Johnson. So with that in mind, I think we might see a guy defend it, and his name is Jordan Spieth.
With all that being said, who does the course set up for? Granted, the best players in the world are going to be playing, but is there anybody that has an advantage due to the course setup?
Like you said, I'm sure you'll see a good mix of players at the top. It usually comes out that way. If I had to lean to somebody, it's whoever can hit a ton of greens in regulation. If you can hit the greens, even though they are tricky, Donnie Ross greens always are, I still think you're going to be in a much better spot than those scrambling around.
The side story to the weekend has to be the final pick for Davis Love on the Ryder Cup. Who are some guys you'll be watching?
Yeah, so there's probably 10 guys that could win and have a case to make the team, but from everything I've read this week, from people down there, people close to Davis Love, people close to some of the other captains, they think, and I think I said this last week, it's down to the 3 guys. It's down to Bubba, it's down to Daniel Berger, and it's down to Justin Thomas. They all 3 were in Hazeltine earlier this week for a practice round. I think a couple other guys were up there. Some of the pairings that they were out in the practice round already had me excited. DJ and Koepka, Patrick Reed, Jordan Spieth, Phil and Ricky Fowler. So I think it's those 3 guys, and my gut tells me it's whoever plays the best this week is going to make the team.
Is there any of those 3 that sets up pairing-wise better than others?
That's an interesting question. For me, I like Daniel Berger's game just because it's the most well-rounded. He is very good off the tee. He's top 30 in total driving. He's top 40 in greens and regulation, and he's top 40 in putting. Now, he is not the strongest scrambler, which would be a little concerning. But neither is Bubba, even though you would think he is. He used to be, but he's way down the ranks this year. And neither is Justin Thomas, so I don't think it knocks Berger that much. Justin Thomas, from from a power standpoint, he would be fun to play with, you would think, but he also has struggled hitting greens in regulation, and when you're playing 4-ball, that's not something you want to have to deal with as your partner always trying to get up and down. But he's friends with everybody, so that's the positive for him. And then Bubba, there's probably 3 or 4 guys on the team that want him on the team. His power would certainly be an asset. It's just, he needs to be chip on the shoulder guy at this point because he's been killed in the singles every time he's played, and he's kind of tough to pair with from the standpoint that once he gets down, you never want to play with the powder guy. So, I don't know. I think there's positives and negatives for each 3 from a pairing standpoint.
Are you leaning towards Daniel Berger as who Davis Love should pick?
That is he should pick, yes.
Who will he pick?
I think if Justin Thomas has the best week or somehow makes it into the top 5-ish at the Tour Championship, I think that's who he wants to pick. The problem is Bubba and Berger have much, much stronger resumes at this point.
Shifting back.
My gut tells me Bubba is going to play well this week and get the pick.
Shifting back to East Lake, with the 30 guys left, is everybody still in contention to win the FedEx Cup?
Yes, anyone can win. Now, if you're basically in spot 17 through 30, you have to win, and then you need some help from the other top guys. I think it's anybody in the top 5. If they win the cup.
What do you think winning score is this weekend?
That was tricky. I think this course is very weather dependent. Last year we saw it play very tough. There were some chilly, windy days. It looks like, with the exception of Sunday might be a little bit breezy and cooler. It looks like the first few days are going to be warm. So I think the score is going to be around 8 to 11 under, somewhere in there. The course still has some teeth. There's some length. They've got it in great condition. There's some rough. So it never goes too deep, but I think you'll see them touch the double-digit under par mark.
Your prediction for the winner of the Tour Championship?
I would love to see Adam Scott do it. I'm just not sure the putter is going to cooperate fully. I really think this course sets up well for Jordan Spieth. He's not the most accurate off the tee, but it seems like his misses aren't that bad. And his short game's just so good. I love the Ryder Cup on the doorstep angle where he's got to get his game in form. I think he makes a point here and wins it all.
Who is the FedEx winner?
Well, that would be now that's tough to.
I know that's asking you to predict.
I have no idea how it works. After, let's say, Spieth wins, I think DJ is probably going to win the FedEx Cup, just because you never see the guy finish outside of top 10s, top 12s on the leaderboard. I think he has a good enough week where he keeps that top spot.
Any other golf notes?
No, we'll have a nice Ryder Cup pod preview catch-off next week, so I'll save stuff for that.
Prior to coming on the podcast, it was revealed that you will be live on the grounds of Hazeltine. So
Yep.
The podcast is really moving up in the world with live coverage from Hazeltine.
If I was thinking forward, I would have gotten a custom T-shirt with the Saxton Pod and maybe a slogan, and tried to get some interviews out there. I don't know, maybe we can work on that somehow. We'll see, but I will try to name drop all I can.
Shifting gears back to the world of football. Another winning week for us at 3-2 gets us back to level on the year at 7-7. We'll start first with college. Give me your overall thoughts on what transpired last weekend.
I think we're seeing a pretty, I mentioned this last week, a pretty good theme theme of parity this year. You know, North Dakota State knocking off Iowa. Not surprising to some. It was pretty surprising to me just because it was in Iowa. Just the theme of upsets continues to rule. But basically the biggest thing I took away was Ohio State going into Norman. Once again, big game Bob, showing us who he is. I think that was the biggest story for many reasons. I think this is Bob's last year there now. I think this really hurt him in that town, and I think it solidifies, for me at least, Urban Meyer as the best college football coach in the country, even though Saban had a pretty impressive win this weekend as well. I would take Urban Meyer over him.
Most impressive win of the weekend, Ohio State, Louisville, or Alabama?
See, I know Louisville is the easy answer, but I think it's Ohio State. Just that record that Oklahoma sports in Norman, I just think it's such a tough place to play. To me, that's the win I would take.
Does that validate Louisville as a legitimate contender for the national championship?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I can't discount that. That was an absolute drubbing they put on Florida State. And I do think that Florida State, Darwin James was a huge missing part. He is usually that last line of defense / rover that they could have spied with, but he was not there, and they just ran wild on him. It was almost like Florida State gave up when they got down a little. It was very weird to see, but definitely Louisville has to be in the conversation. I think the biggest takeaway for me is don't overreact. If you think Louisville's going undefeated and just going to run roughshod over everybody, let's just pump the brakes.
Agree. The way that everything has shaped out, we saw Wisconsin almost go down to Georgia State. Tennessee got a scare from Ohio. Looking at Louisville's schedule, they do go to Clemson next week and have at Houston second to last week. But any of those games in between could be a slip-up, the way that everything has gone down so far.
Yep.
So we'll start Thursday night. Tomorrow night, Clemson on the road at Georgia Tech. Clemson open -13, currently -9.5. Any?
That's a scary line drop for me. I do like Clemson in this game. I actually like the Louisville news headlines. I think that helps Clemson. They can get refocused, kind of stay out of the limelight a little bit until their big matchup. I'm not touching this game, though, with that type of line movement.
Louisville next week for Clemson. Possible look-ahead spot?
Definitely a possible look-ahead spot. I think I would be more scared if it was another team. I think with Clemson's athletes on defense, that triple option shouldn't be too big of an issue.
Is this an important game for Clemson to somewhat right the ship for the slow start they've had?
I think the goal for Clemson here should be obviously a win, but it doesn't have to be a blowout, but just a comfortable win where they're not fighting for their lives again in the second half. That's got to take a toll on you eventually, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I don't have a lean either in this game. I do think Clemson is equipped to stop that triple option. The worry for me is Louisville next week. Moving ahead to Saturday, Stanford at UCLA. This opened UCLA -1. It is now Stanford -3.
I don't understand why this opened that direction. I'm kind of confused with the UCLA love. I would think that Stanford is going to employ the same strategy they did this past week against USC. Line up and just run it down their throats and say, hey, try to stop us.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be David Shaw's MO. Stanford has won 5 straight against UCLA as well as against the spread wins. I lean Stanford in this spot, although they do go to Washington next Friday.
I'm not sure Washington, it's a huge game, obviously, in Stanford's season. I'm not sure that it's has the cachet yet for them to be looking ahead. I don't like the giving the hook on the road is my hesitation, but I also would lean Stanford.
To East Lansing, where Wisconsin comes to town. Michigan State off of their win at Notre Dame, which has eliminated Notre Dame from the playoff. Michigan State opened -6. They're now -5.5.
Yeah, this smells more letdowny to me, especially similar teams, similar style with Wisconsin coming in. Wisconsin coming off a stinker, clearly looking ahead to this game. They're going to start a new quarterback this week. I am not sure what to think with the quarterback change midweek like that. That's got to be a little bit weird. I want to say I actually lean Wisconsin here. I'm not sure I can do it.
We have mentioned David Shaw as being underrated. How underrated is Mark D'Antonio?
Yeah, it's got to be one of those two guys at this point. I didn't want to believe in the underdog stat that we threw out last week. And he just gets his team ready to play, especially in those situations. They're never not prepared.
Wisconsin is 0-4 the last 4 times playing Michigan State. I think this is going to be a close game. So I would lean Wisconsin with the points, but would not feel comfortable with it.
No, neither one of us have liked Wisconsin this year. They impressed me the first couple of games, but I never liked betting on a team that I hated all year. I try not to react week by week like that.
Moving down south to the SEC, Arkansas goes to College Station to face Texas A&M. A&M open -2.5, currently -6.
I can't seem to figure out Texas A&M. Both these teams come in pretty good ranked matchup. I was high on Arkansas. They haven't played as well as I thought they should have this year. But man, that number seems high to me. I think I like Arkansas kind of wearing them down. I think they have the better win on their schedule with the TCU win. I know they didn't play well opening week, but I think that's too many points for a team that I have not believed in, Texas A&M.
I think this is a great spot for Arkansas. A&M coming off the win against Auburn. Arkansas, this is a sandwich game. They played Texas State last week, Alcorn State next week. A good sandwich spot for them. I agree. I think this is too many points.
Think do it.
You know what Bielema is going to want to do. I agree. I think it'll wear down A&M's strength, the defensive line. I like Arkansas in this spot.
As do I. I do like A&M's defensive line, but it's more of a pass rushing defensive line. I'm not sure they're going to want to just get punched in the face for 4 quarters, like you said.
Official.
Let's do it.
Arkansas +6.
I like that.
Staying in the SEC for another top 25 game. Georgia goes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off that loss to Bama. Georgia comeback win against Missouri late. Ole Miss open -2. It has jumped to Ole Miss -7.
I was hoping this line was going to be lower because I absolutely love Ole Miss in this spot. The one concern would be tanking the season. I think it's a little bit early for that. But Georgia is not a good football team. If Ole Miss can sell out and stop Nick Chubb, people are going to see, 11th ranked Georgia 3-0 at a team that just comes off back-to-back losses. How are they getting 6 points? I like Ole Miss here. I think it's a get-right spot. I like Chad Kelly a lot this game.
Ole Miss is 1-3 under Hugh Freeze after Bama against the spread. Only hesitation. I agree with what you summed up. Ole Miss has seemed to have Kirby Smart's number even when he was at Bama. I think Chad Kelly could have a good game. This is another road start for Eason. I think this will be a little bit more hostile environment than Missouri.
Yeah, just a little bit. They actually care about football. Yeah, Ole Miss.
I would lean Ole Miss. I don't love them though.
That's fine. We can keep it as a free pick play.
To maybe the highlight game of the weekend, Florida goes to Tennessee. We may have been in grade school the last time Tennessee beat Florida.
It's been a while, and Tennessee rolls into this game with 3 or 4 big-time injuries. I am very surprised this line hasn't adjusted down even further.
This open Tennessee -10. It is now 6.5. Florida also has that key injury with Del Rio, the quarterback, out.
Yep. Total stay away from me. I really liked Florida before the quarterback injury. I thought Del Rio actually looked pretty good so far this year, but I just can't bet on a new starting quarterback against their arch rival. I want to. I really do, because I think Tennessee is about done, but I just can't do it.
This starts a brutal 4-game stretch for Tennessee. Florida this week, at Georgia next week, following week at Texas A&M, and then the brutal 4-game stretch concludes at home to Alabama.
Conceivably, they could lose all 4 of those games.
Oh, absolutely.
Preseason possible playoff team, SEC winner, might be staring at 4 losses in the face here. Man, I want to lean Florida. That would be my lean, but I can't pick it.
I like Tennessee to win the game. I don't know that they cover. I think this is a perfect scenario where they beat Florida this week, Georgia loses to Ole Miss, and then Georgia knocks off Tennessee next week with a good spot for Georgia.
That's a great look ahead right there.
Other top 25 action. Just give me, if you have any lean or official, Louisville -25.5 at Marshall. This is a sandwich spot for Louisville, Florida State last week, at Clemson next week.
Yeah, I have Marshall starred. Louisville has always been a team that I don't like betting on. Quick old story, when young Thunder Dan first got into the gambling game, he took a teaser and had Louisville. He had a team playing against Louisville +70, 1.5. Louisville won 80-3. So that didn't work out for us. So ever since then, I have stayed away from betting on Louisville, but I don't think this is a bad spot if you like to sprinkle Marshall.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's Marshall or nothing. Penn State goes to Michigan. Michigan -19.
Michigan gets one of their DBs back this week. I think it's the first time he's playing this year. You would know more about this game, but Penn State really seems to be struggling. They struggled a little bit with Temple last week. But 19, that's a lot of points.
Typically, these games between Penn State and Michigan are close. Penn State's very banged up defensively. I don't know if they could hang long enough to keep this within the 19. I would lean Michigan in this spot.
Wow, that's a lot coming from the Knit fan.
I don't feel comfortable enough to make it an official, but I would lean Michigan.
All right. Well, maybe a Michigan-Marshall tease then for the people.
A game that I don't have a feel for, Houston -34.5 going to Texas State.
Houston played a pretty physical game last week with Cincinnati. I would assume they are going to try to take it a little bit easier this one. That line's probably too high for me. You're probably going to have to rely on backups in the second half to push that number.
It would seem that Houston probably has to worry at Navy October 8th, and then probably not till November 17th against Louisville.
Yep.
So, should be a lot of high lines for Houston coming up. Interesting line Saturday at South Florida. Florida State 6-point favorites.
This is really going to test Dabo. I mean, not Dabo.
Jimbo.
Can he rally the troops? Because they didn't just get punched in the face. They got punched in the nuts, the face. and they dropped on the ground and kicked. He has got to tell his team that that's one loss. They run the tables. They're still in the playoffs. But that line smells really bad to me. It tells me that they don't believe Jimbo can do that. I don't have the balls to pull the trigger on this one, but the line tells me to lean USF.
I'm right with you. I couldn't do it either. Florida State does have North Carolina next week. Obviously Louisville last week. So somewhat of a sandwich spot. But I don't have the balls to pull the trigger on USF either.
And that line is really low. Like, if it was 9, maybe I could pull the trigger, but 6 is real smelly.
To the Big 12, Oklahoma State at Baylor. Baylor -8.
I don't know what to think of Baylor. They seem to be moving it and winning and winning comfortably. They're not scoring as many points with Al Garo. I've never liked Al Garo as a coach. I was high on Oklahoma State to start the year. They have not been impressive. This line, to me, even though it's technically not no man's land, it feels no man's landy for these two teams. I would lean Oklahoma State, but I don't like it.
Baylor's first 3 games, Northwestern State, SMU, and at Rice. So this will be their first big test. I think the Oklahoma State win last week against Pitt is a pretty underrated win.
I agree.
Now, granted, they were at home, but I think that's a pretty good win. I lean Oklahoma State as well. I think 8 is way too many points.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma State's offense to be able to score points almost in any game, and I actually agree with you about that Pitt game. Pitt is one of the stronger ground and pound teams, especially for a Big 12 team. They're not going to see that much physical play like that. I agree with you. That was a really good win.
Washington, 9-point favorite on the road, goes to Arizona.
I think this is a good spot for Rich Rod. Washington, a look-ahead spot here. I think 9.5 is too many. Washington is definitely the better team. I've been very impressed with what Peterson's done there. I've been a little bit disappointed with the 2 quarters I've watched of Rich Rod's team. But I think this Rich Rod is scary in these type of spots here.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is so hard for me to figure out. I think I would lean Arizona as well with Washington in the look-ahead spot for next week against Stanford. But I don't feel comfortable with Arizona.
Arizona's defense and their depth is what scares me, especially in the secondary. So I wouldn't bet on it, but I would lean that way.
LSU -3.5 goes to Auburn.
I saw that Gus Malzahn had to have a press conference, kind of calm people down, jumping off the ledges. He burned us last week, but I want to jump back on, I think, this week. I kind of liked him with the hook here. This is almost a desperation spot, I think, for Malzahn.
Auburn's last games against LSU in Auburn. In 2014, 41-7 win. 2012, 12-10 loss. 2010, 24-17 win. In 08, 26-21 loss. So basically all these games have been close against LSU. I think you have to lean Auburn with that hook.
Yep. It was 3 total stay away from me, but I like the hook and I like the desperation angle for Auburn, and I like that LSU has no ability to throw the forward pass.
Interesting game in Northwestern. Nebraska comes in off that big win against Oregon. They're 7.5-point favorites against Northwestern.
I liked Northwestern last week against Duke. They were not all impressive winning that game, but I guess they did win. This line has to be low. It's sort of like the Florida State line, opposite with the win, though, with Nebraska. Man, I wish they were playing another team. I just don't know if I can do it, but I would lean taking the 7.5 here.
I'm with you as well. A side note from last weekend, I'm so over Oregon. I'm struggling to even watch them. And I'm happy finally going for two. It came back and bit them. Well, I think they were 1 for 5 and lost the game by 3.
Yep.
I think I would also lean Northwestern. I thought that was a program-changing win for Nebraska. Now a tough spot for them to go to Nebraska.
42 uniform combinations, 0 national titles
it
for the Oregon Ducks.
it should be not a great crowd for Northwestern. They never really put that many people in the stands. So I think this is a tough spot for Nebraska.
I think if we're getting the hook here, if you want to just grow some, I'm ready to do it. I think I'm okay with it.
Northwestern plus 7.5 official.
They're really bad. Like, Northwestern's not a good football team, so you're just taking a leap of faith here. Just for everyone out there. We don't think Northwestern's good. We're just betting the line here.
The last 2 games at Northwestern, a 38-17 Nebraska win and a 29-28 Nebraska win. So not much there to go off, but yeah, I still like Northwestern in this spot.
All right, let's do it.
Friday night, Utah -3 hosting USC.
What embarrassing. Like, USC is now an underdog to Utah. I know Utah's okay, but this isn't the Urban Meyer Utes. I would be embarrassed if I was a USC fan.
Do they basically have to start over?
Yeah, I think they've been band-aiding, and I know we've talked about this with one of our buddies. Putting that band-aid on, they still get good recruits, but it doesn't seem like they're getting the depth of recruits or those star recruits. I'm not sure what that entails in a college system, but I think they have to totally clean house from top to bottom. Have to.
This seems to be that it'll be the 3rd time in 5 years that they're going to have to hire a coaching search committee. They are in
There's one name out there to me that screams clean house. He probably won't leave because he is making big time money and he's got a few years on his contract. Chip Kelly is the name to me. You hire him, he totally changes the culture top to bottom, and he does it his own way.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go with Tom Herman.
I mean, he would be my college choice for them, definitely.
I was going to ask if Chip Kelly considers at the end of the year.
There has to be a phone call made. I think it depends on how the rest of the season goes with San Francisco. Obviously, they had a good Week 1 win. They kind of put up a little bit of a fight in Carolina, so right now it would be a no because I think he thinks he's got something going in San Francisco. But if they finish 2-14, USC says, hey, here's full control of basically our athletic department. He's got to consider. I think it's a perfect fit for him.
How about Lynn Swann, the new AD at USC? It seems like Clay Helton had to do something special this year. Swann was probably going to go get a guy. Any wild card chance of Bill Cowher with the Steelers connections?
Interesting. I actually was going in another different Steelers direction with Mike Tomlin if they miss the playoffs somehow. I'm not sure Bill Cowher wants to do the college loop-de-loop recruiting dance. That's my drawback with Cowher in college.
Certainly a situation to keep your eye on. I think you have to lean Utah here, Friday night game.
Yes. Even with USC down, the Utah fans will be up for the game just because of the name coming into town.
You like it enough for an official?
Do you?
I do.
I think I do, actually. I think if you can get USC on small lines the rest of the year, you might as well just pound away.
So the officials, Arkansas +6. Rolling the die with the Wildcats in Northwestern +7.5. And Utah -3 Friday night. We'll tweet out any off-the-board plays. We're strong leans. To the varsity. Your overall thoughts after 2 weeks in the NFL?
Some surprises, some not surprises. The Redskins Eagles, basically what I'm talking about here. Pretty disappointing start to the season for me. I need to go focus on another team, maybe another sport. Might get into arena football. The one big positive that I have so far is that it's actually reassuring and exciting to see some of the really young quarterbacks play well, because I was in the camp where once the veterans, the Eli's, Ben's, Rivers, Brady's all retire, the quarterback play looked to be awful. But it looks like some of these young guys can really play.
Just for the people out there, before the podcast, I send you an agenda, but don't really get into details as what my thoughts are or your thoughts are. So I find it very funny that you would bring that up. I had the same thing written down that we have talked about where the quarterbacks are going. There does seem to be a crop of young talent out there that the NFL is going to be just fine once this older gap is out.
I think we probably mentioned this 3 or 4 years ago at our annual golf trip that, man, what are we going to do when these guys retire? Because every year we keep seeing the same retreaded free agent signings, and every year the rookies are busts. But there's some good ones out there, I think, and it gives me hope that maybe some of the ones in college will follow suit.
Since you brought up the Hearts, what's the story with Kirk Cousins in the locker room?
See, I don't know. It just all feels a little TMZ-ish. Maybe a guy threw out a unanimous quote to some local hack, and he ran with it, and then it became a bigger story. I think the issue was people are upset that he is playing so conservatively, not wanting to make mistakes. The contract thing is weird, when you don't have a long-term deal, you don't have that luxury of making mistakes, letting the ball fly. He's making a ton of money, don't get me wrong, this year, but he's got no security for next year, so I think he's trying to make the correct decision on every play. 3rd and 9, maybe not try to sneak one in there for the first down, hit him with a check down and we'll punt, but you can't do that every time. I think some of the vets are getting frustrated because they think they have the talent to be a playoff team. I don't think they have the talent to win a playoff game. Their offensive line is atrocious. Their defensive line is atrocious. I don't think you can win without either one of those. I think you'll probably see a come-to-Jesus moment this week, and Gruden will tell him, just let it go. You throw 4 picks, who cares? But maybe you throw 4 touchdowns still.
We can get into that a little bit deeper when we hit the Washington game this weekend. 2-1 official picks in the NFL this weekend. I won last week, guessed the lines. I'm 1-0 on the year. We start Thursday night. Houston goes to New England. I, for some reason, thought the Patriots would be a 2.5-point favorite.
I wrote down Jimmy G out. That is not official. We're not breaking news here. I have no doubt that he is not going to play. I think he might be a backup, but sprained AC joint is very painful. I think Brissett gets the start. That is why I had Houston as a 1-point favorite in Foxborough.
It opened Houston -2.5. It's down to Houston -1.
Wow, 2.5. That's a lot of respect. They didn't really let Brissett do much. Now, they were milking a pretty big league. I think his average yards per attempt on his 9 throws was like 2 or 1.9. So, a lot of checkdowns, a lot of screens. Man, what's funny is I still don't love Houston for this matchup, even with New England starting a 3rd-string quarterback.
I have a hard time going against Belichick. You think that he's probably going to try and take away DeAndre Hopkins and make Osweiler spread it around elsewhere and beat him. I like Lamar Miller in this spot for them. Obviously, Houston has better weapons. But can Osweiler go to Foxborough on a Thursday night and beat Belichick?
assignment room. Obviously, Lamar Miller and D-Hop are priorities, but I think Will Fuller has a nice game here. I think this is actually going to be a low-scoring defensive game, which I would lean towards the home team. Maybe it's just Osweiler for me, too. I don't have faith in him. I kind of lean New England here, but I don't know I can make it an official play with a third-string quarterback.
Absolutely.
I actually think the Hoodie likes this. He loves that his third-string quarterback's playing. I think he gets up for stuff like this.
I completely agree. Belichick's back against the wall right here. This is primetime Bill Belichick.
Yeah, like it's nothing. If they win by 20, I would not be surprised at all.
I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick's sitting out on the bay right now in his boat. To Sunday, Bengals host Denver. I said Bengals -3.
I said Broncos at Bengals, pick 'em.
Open Bengals -3.5. Currently Bengals -3. I get this one 1-1 on the week.
A lot of respect there for Cincinnati. I think that shows you that Vegas wasn't too worried about that Steelers loss last week. This should be a bloodbath here. I think both defenses are going to bring their lunch pails. I think both quarterbacks are in for a long day. Now that hook is gone, I actually think I like Cincinnati in a bounce-back spot here.
I love the Cincinnati Bengals this week. First home game. Place should be rocking. Trevor Siemian's first road start. I really like Cincinnati in this spot.
So do I.
Official.
Let's do it.
Bengals -3. Interesting game in Tennessee this week. They host our ex-wagon, the Raiders. I said Tennessee -1.
I had the Titans -1.5.
It opened at a pick. It's currently Tennessee -1.5. I get that one.
You clipped me there. Breaking down this game, maybe I'm just punch drunk for Mike Mularkey, but I actually like the home team here again. I think Mariota can have a big day against that Oakland secondary.
This is a very weird spot. I've tried to talk myself out of liking the Titans for the third straight week, and I can't do it. I don't feel strong enough to make them official for the third straight week, but this is a weird spot for the Raiders.
It is, and I agree with you about not making it official because I don't think Tennessee should have won the game last week. They did not look good. Detroit just looked worse. So for that reason, I'm staying away.
Any concern long-term about this Oakland secondary?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, long-term this year?
Yes.
No doubt. I think they might be a bottom 5 secondary in the league. I think we both said beginning of the year in our preview that was their weakness. We didn't like that. Interestingly, Khalil Mack has sort of just disappeared. Not sure what's up with him either. So the defense as a whole gave up 8 yards of play last week to the ghost of Mike Smith, Atlanta Falcons, which has got to be concerning. So you would assume next year in the draft, defense.
To Buffalo, they come off the Thursday night loss over the Jets. Arizona comes into town, East Coast, after their thrashing of our wagon, 40-7. I said Arizona -2.
I gave them a little more respect and said Arizona 3.5.
You get this, it opens 6.5. It is down to 4.
Wow, big fletch line there early in the week, which you do not see very often. I'm assuming the pro bettors don't like the cross-country trip 1 o'clock start and the Bills getting 3 or 4 extra days of rest. Whew, man, that line is sort of like the Northwestern line where I kind of like just the pure bet of the Bills with the line.
I think this is a fantastic spot for the Buffalo Bills. As you said, playing Thursday, an extra couple days to prepare. Come to Jesus meeting, firing the offensive coordinator. Arizona just puts up 40 against a pretty solid team in Tampa Bay. Now they got to go cross country and play 1 o'clock in Buffalo. I love Buffalo in this spot.
Yeah, me too. This smells like a 24-21 win for the Cardinals. I don't think they lose this game. I really, really like David Johnson to have a big game out of the backfield catching balls. I know that's a specific call there, but I think he has 4 or 5 catches for 70 to 80 yards and a touchdown. But I actually think Tyrod Taylor could finally break out and have a good game.
Buffalo official?
Let's get crazy.
+4 Bills. To Jacksonville. They host the Ravens. We tied this one. As we both said, Jags -1. It opened to pick. It's now Baltimore -1.
I can't get a feel for this game. The Gus Bus has lost a couple wheels. I think his job is seriously in trouble. They have a lot of talent, but they seem to play very stupidly on defense. They got drubbed in San Diego, who lost Danny Woodhead for most of that game and didn't have Keenan Allen, obviously, and they still got killed. They're just not ready, I don't think. They might get Chris Ivory back, which I think will help because TJ Yeldon in a good spot did nothing last week. I lean Jags, but want no part of this one.
Yeah, I am in the same boat. Right now, is Gus Bus the favorite to be fired?
I think him and Rex have got to be ties as even money almost.
If Bortles gets a change of offensive coordinators, can that help him, or is this what Blake Bortles is?
I kind of think this is what he is. I know you were a little higher on him than me, so I could see that angle where if he got a better coordinator, maybe he blossoms a little bit. I think his weapons on the outside are pretty good. They're not. I love Allen Robinson, but I don't love Allen Hurns as the number 2. Their tight ends, Julius Thomas is athletic, but he's off the field for half the game. And then Yeldon, I really, really dislike. I think if he can get a steadier running game, he can be a better player.
Staying in Florida, the Dolphins host the Cleveland Browns. I said Dolphins -4.
I had Dolphins 6.5.
It opened 7. It is now up to 10.
10.
Cody Kessler getting the start for the Browns.
Oh, that's right. I'm not sure how you cannot like the Dolphins here. They lose to what became a tight game to their division rival. They get back home. Probably a must-win game now, 0-2. The Browns are already, I think their season's over. They're just looking at guys now. I'm not sure how you don't like the Dolphins here, but I'm not giving 10 points to anybody.
Not with the Dolphins for certain. I agree with everything you just said.
I think if there's a note from this game, it's got to be fantasy football. If you are in a league and the Miami Dolphins defense is available on your waiver wire, which there's probably a decent chance it is, I would go ahead and pick them up.
To the Meadowlands, where the Hearts come to town. Is this a must-win for the Hearts?
Yes, 100%.
I said Giants -3.5.
I said Giants -6.
It opened Giants -4. It's currently Giants 4.5.
I do not like that line. I would lean Giants, but I don't like where that line is. NFC East games, a lot of them come down to a field goal. The Giants have had our number. The Giants have had Washington's number the last 10 years, so that's the side I would lean to. They look to be much improved on defense, especially. Their offense still looks weird to me. I know they have all these weapons, but they just can't generate anything. Typically, though, Eli usually has a very good game against Washington defenses, so I would think he will bounce back this week. Not sure if Rashad Jennings is playing. Hurt his thumb. Haven't heard anything about him yet.
I did not realize, I'm looking back now, the last time the Hearts went to the Giants and won was 2011.
Makes sense.
I think Washington is the play here. They're the more desperate team. Um, I know everybody's talking about the Giants' defense, but they could be 0-2 right now. Dallas guy gets out of bounds. Bailey gets a chance to kick it. And then last week they get a blocked field goal for a touchdown. I like Washington in this spot.
I cannot disagree with anything you said. I'm just, it's basically eyeball and memory for me, which means nothing. Yeah, look, Giants offense has looked pretty bad. That's the one silver lining here if you're a Washington fan.
Forgot to mention we'll get Norman versus Odell Beckham, at least for parts of this game.
Yep, that is the new unsportsmanlike rule, is the Beckham-Norman rule. Two unsportsmanlikes, and you get ejected, basically, because of these two guys.
Do you expect any shenanigans?
I'm sure you will see, I think you'll see pregame a little face-to-face, probably no touching or anything, but I think you'll see a lot of jawing. I would not be surprised. Odell called him out for not covering the other team's best receiver. I would not be surprised if you see Odell line up on the opposite side a lot of the time here.
Will the Hearts stick with Norman staying on that one side then still?
Yes, they reiterated he may move around once or twice depending on a situation, but they firmly believe that with Breland and Hall on one side and Norman on the other, that gives them the best total scheme versus just you need to cover this good receiver.
Can Cousins get right or back on track against this Giants secondary?
To me, it's the Giants' front line that worries me. Their defensive line looked really good, especially in that Dallas game. They did not move off the ball. I think you're going to see the same theme play out, where Washington will not run the ball. They can't run the ball. Wouldn't be shocked to see the rookie get some run here. I think you'll see Cousins have to throw it 50 times again, and I'm not a huge fan of that philosophy.
It would seem to me on paper that Jordan Reed could have a big day.
He's got to. I think everyone has to, really. I think Jordan Reed, Deshaun Jackson's going to have to get one early, I think, over the top to loosen it up. To me, I keep saying these two guys' names, Chris Thompson, Jamison Crowder. Crowder had a good game last week. You got to get those two the ball underneath and outside the hashes to kind of spread the defense out a little bit. I think if we get only down the middle game, I just really worry about running the ball because I think the Giants are going to pack it in if we start getting in love with those over-the-middle routes.
I only got to see parts of Washington last week. How did Josh Doxson look?
He made a couple of good plays. I think they put him in some weird positions. They tried to throw him a fade in the red zone, and Dallas was all over it. I think he's going to be really good. I think he is still learning the speed of the game just because he was out the entire preseason, basically.
So I lean Hearts, but I don't like official here.
I lean Giants, but I think they probably win by a field goal.
To Green Bay, coming off the Sunday night loss to Minnesota, they host Detroit Lions. We will tie this one as we both said Green Bay 7. Green Bay open -8. It's currently 7.5.
Man, something wrong with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. He just doesn't look like the same player to me. But I'm really down on Detroit. Amir Abdullah looks like he's going to miss with a foot injury. So Theo Riddick, more looks. I lean Green Bay here, but I don't feel good about it.
I know we've exchanged texts about this, probably brought it up in the podcast. Is there any chance that Mike McCarthy's job is on the hot seat?
It's weird. Some people really dislike him as a coach, that he's just a placeholder because of Aaron Rodgers' greatness. And then, Cowherd the other day thinks he's one of the more underrated coaches in the league. So I'm more in the early camp where I think if Rodgers doesn't have the success he has, McCarthy's definitely out of a job. I actually think McCarthy's schemes hold Rodgers back a little bit.
I completely agree. I think you hit it right on the head Sunday night when you said that they need third down Darren Sproles type back or a better tight end.
I don't get their offensive philosophy. I get it. They want to hit some home runs, but every play can't be that. I think they're not using Randall Cobb like they used him his rookie year when he was sensational. And like you just said, I wish they would involve an athletic tight end or a third down scat back type of guy more often. It would just add a whole new element to the offense.
I also lean Green Bay. They do have the bye week next week. This is actually, they will not leave Lambeau until October 30th.
Wow.
Detroit this week at home, bye week. Giants at home October 9th. Dallas at home the 16th. Chicago at home the 20th.
Who was the scheduler from the Midwest? The upper Midwest?
Then they come back home they go to Atlanta the 30th, back home for Indianapolis on the 6th, and then 3 straight road games.
Man. Maybe Jim Bob Cooter was the scheduler.
I lean Green Bay.
So do I.
To Carolina, they host Sam Bradford and the Minnesota Vikings. I said Carolina minus 4.5.
I said 7.
Open 6.5, currently 7. You get this.
Sam Bradford looked really good this past week. Like, really, really good. Stephon Diggs looks like he is an emerging star. No news from AP is still bad news in my mind. I think he is out for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5. Whatever that bye week is, I think he'll come back after that. I think it's 4 weeks. I actually like Carolina in this spot. I think Minnesota's offense caters to what Carolina likes to do defensively. They'll be one-dimensional. The Minnesota defense is really good, though, so it wouldn't surprise me if they give Cam some trouble here.
Yeah, I agree. Without Peterson, even though he hasn't looked great, I don't know how Sam Bradford, with basically 2.5 weeks in the system, can go to Carolina being one-dimensional and win this game. Carolina has looked pretty good the past couple weeks. I also lean Carolina in this spot.
Yeah, Minnesota coming off a huge win, too, against basically their rival, so maybe a little letdown here.
To Seattle, they host Chip Kelly and the Niners. I
had chickens given 8.5.
I had them 7.5. It opened 11. It's 9.5 currently.
11, wow. Oh man, Vegas must love the bounce back here, going home, getting right. Looks like Thomas Rawls will play. Call me crazy, but I actually don't mind the Niners here.
I'm on the other side, even though Seattle has looked terrible.
The one thing I hate is the Niners going East Coast back to West Coast. Usually that never works in the team's favor.
Yeah, this will be.
More I think of it, under 10, I think it's a stay away for me.
This will be their second back-to-back road games. They are 0-8-1. Their last 9 in Seattle. I think Chip Kelly's offense plays right into Seattle's defense hands. I don't think Seattle's going to score a ton of points. So the covering the spread may be in jeopardy, but I would lean Seattle.
Yeah, I think Seattle wins. The points is where I was leaning towards San Francisco. But if it's under 10, that gets scary with one of those late Blaine Gabbert pick sixes.
To Tampa, to our wagon, they host the LA Rams. I said Tampa minus 6.
I had them in no man's land at minus 5.
You get this, it opened 3.5, it is now 5.
I think this is a good bounce back spot for our wagon. They go west and get drubbed. The Rams coming off a very emotional home win, opening that stadium now to go all the way east. The Rams still stink. Their defense is just pretty good. I lean Tampa, but I am not going to make a pick here until we learn the status of Doug Martin, who is getting an MRI today on his hamstring.
I really like Tampa in this spot. Everybody's high on the Rams after last week against Seattle. And they only scored 9 points. Tampa gets absolutely killed in Arizona. Most of the world's probably down on them right now. I think this is a really good spot for Tampa.
I agree. If you want to make it official, I'm good with it. I wish Doug Martin was 100%, but I guess Charles Sims is not a terrible backup option.
Bucks -5 official. To
Done.
Philly. They host the Steelers. I said Steelers -6.
I had Steelers -4.
Opened Steelers -5.5. Currently Steelers -3.5.
Pledge line. I don't know where the percentage is. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a large percentage who are betting on Carson City, West Philadelphia here.
No, you were right the first time. Most is on Pittsburgh right now.
So that's the flex line. That makes me think the Eagles have a shot here. I think I actually like the Eagles in this game, especially getting above the field goal. Wentz has looked good. I like their game plan. I think actually against the Steelers defense, what they're doing with the rollouts, I think Wentz can have another good game here. The concern for me back in the Eagles would be getting torched in the secondary by Big Ben.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on Leotis McKelvin yet. He was deemed week to week. He would certainly help that secondary, who is very bad. Kind of a sandwich spot for Pittsburgh. They had Cincinnati last week. They have Kansas City next week. I think it's a good spot for Philly, but I don't feel confident enough that I would make this an official.
Do you have it in front of you? Is that Pittsburgh-Kansas City game in Pittsburgh or at Kansas City?
In Pittsburgh.
So not really a travel game. What is it, 2.5 hours from Pitt to Philly, 2 hours?
Yes. Flight probably a half hour.
Yeah, well, if they're flying, man. I like Philadelphia here. We can sit on this and see where the line goes and then tweet it out. But I'm on the Philly camp above a field goal.
Let me get your thoughts from an outsider's perspective on what you've seen from Doug Peterson.
He was really comfortable calling plays. I haven't read enough about team chemistry, guys buying in.
I just meant as a play caller.
He's called 2 almost perfect games so far, especially with what he's dealing with a rookie quarterback. Now I kind of see the value of Chase Daniel, why they paid him so much. He is supposedly an expert on the West Coast system. I'm all in on Doug Peterson.
Yeah, I just wanted to get an outsider's
perspective. Like Andy Reid circa 1999.
Yeah, I wanted to get an outsider's perspective. I'm just hearing too much positive Doug from Philly fans, obviously.
He looks good.
I agree. I am interested to see... Can Philly compete for this division?
Yes, for sure. I think this division sucks. If I am picking on Philly, my 2 pickings would be they can't run the ball. They started to against Chicago in the second half. But in a game, when it turns into a grinded out, maybe bad weather, cold weather game, I'd be interested to see what they do. And then I don't think their offensive line has played particularly well. Wentz himself has put himself in a couple of terrible positions to take some big shots. I don't care how big you are, you're going to get knocked out one of those times. But I don't know, maybe it's end of his row, but Jason Peters looked a little deteriorated to me. Jason Kelsey had a pretty bad night on Monday night. We'll see going forward how Peterson addresses those issues.
Agree on everything you said. To the aforementioned Chiefs, they host the Jets this weekend. I had Kansas City -4.5.
I had the Chiefs 2.5.
Open 4, currently 3.
Stay away game for me. I actually like both of these teams right now. I love what the Jets offense looked like the other night. I think this will be a low-scoring defensive game. Brandon Marshall will be questionable. Quincy Enunwa will be questionable. It looks like Jamal Charles will be questionable, but they expect him to make his season debut. I had too many questions for me to have a side here.
I lean Chiefs. Obviously, the Jets have had a little bit more time playing last Thursday night. They're in the midst of this brutal opening start of the season schedule-wise. I'm not a believer in Fitzpatrick. I don't know if he can go to Arrowhead and win.
Fair enough. I like that they don't have Justin Houston breathing down his neck, but that's why I kind of think it's going to be one of those ugly drag-em-out games.
To Indianapolis. We tie this one. We both said Indy -3. It did open Indy -3. Currently 2.5.
Indy Dante Moncrief there's no injury update for him, so shoulder MRI coming today. I mean, we both hated this Indy team. Andrew Luck looked like the Andrew Luck of last week. I don't like the Woodhead injury for the Chargers, though. I lean Indy here because I think they need to win this game, but I don't feel good about either side.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Indy. I would lean that way. I am worried about that Indy offensive line. The strength for San Diego probably is their secondary. So Luck may have a little bit more time, but the lack of balance on Indy's offense is so concerning.
Yeah, and you said San Diego's strengths are secondary. I actually think that helps them in this game, especially if Moncrief is out. I'm assuming they'll stick red on T.Y. Hilton, and if Moncrief's out, there's no other threat, really. They can blitz the hell out of Luck. Luck usually plays well at home, usually plays well after a loss, so desperation time, I think, for Indy gives them the edge, especially under the field goal.
Sunday night, Dallas hosts Chicago. I said Dallas -5.
I said Dallas -4. That's probably a little low now.
Going into this game, you had a 6-5 3-tie lead with 2 games left, so I needed both to win the week. You get this one and clinch this week. We're tied at 1 on the year.
On the board.
This opened 4. You hit it exactly. It's up to Dallas -7. Chicago will be without Cutler, which is probably a good thing.
I don't think it's a 3-point swing like that. I really like what I've seen from Dak Prescott. He was very impressive against Washington. Sort of like the Eagles, I've actually liked what Jason Garrett has done with him. He opens the game with, not 3 straight runs. He opened last week with a great bootleg play that picked up an easy 15 yards. I lean Dallas here.
I think it's too many points. I like Chicago. The whole world saw Chicago implode on Monday night. Dallas gets a good road win in Washington. I think Dallas wins the game, but I think it's too many points.
Big injury for Chicago on the defensive line. Houston torn ACL out for the year.
Yeah, everything's going against Chicago. I would not feel confident picking Chicago, so it's just a small lean for me. Dallas has been notoriously a terrible home favorite.
I think they're 1-14 in their last 16 or 15 home games.
And then Monday night, back to the Superdome for the Saints. They host the Atlanta Falcons. I said Saints 3.5.
I had Saints 4.
Open 3.5. Currently New Orleans -3.
Falcons coming off a pretty impressive win in Oakland, traveling all the way back cross country, but they get the extra day rest, so I don't think that's as big of a deal. Matt Ryan's actually had a pretty good start to the season. I think where the Saints are, I was a huge seller. You were a huge seller. I think they are a home team to watch and sell on the road, just like always. I lean Saints just because of the dome factor. And I actually really like their weapons all of a sudden on offense. Brandon Cooks, Willie Snead, rookie Michael Thomas. Those are three really good wide receivers. They need to get Mark Ingram going. He's had a very slow start to the season. I think they need to let him get loose a little bit here.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of carries last week in a tight game against the Giants. Also, a great official pick for us last week with the Saints. Tie game, late in the game, 13-13. Giants get the ball down to the 1 with a minute to go and take 3 knees, kick the field goal, and we cover plus 4.5. Fantastic win on the official pick'em.
Yeah, that would have been a crushing loss just because that was such a close game the whole time, and a lose on something like that would have been a dagger. But I think clearly we were on the right side there.
I think this is a really good spot for the Saints this week. As you said, Atlanta going cross country back. They do get the extra day, but the Saints could really be 2-0. A blocked field goal for a touchdown against the Giants, and the Raiders go for 2. I don't love the Saints team.
I was concerned about the Saints defense last week against the Giants. They actually held up fairly well. Only giving up 16 points, I think, in the Meadowlands with that receiving corps is pretty good. So I would assume an easier task this week with Atlanta.
Yeah, I think this should be a high-scoring, fun game to watch. I would lean Saints at the Dome on a Monday night.
Yeah, we're not giving the hook anymore, so I agree.
So for officials, we have Bengals -3, Bills +4, Bucks -5. And on the college slate, Arkansas +6, Northwestern +7.5, and Utah -3, 7-7 on the year.
I feel good this week.
Anything else to touch upon?
I believe that is all I have.
Again, we'll tweet out anything else, or if anything changes. Great job by you today.
Tip of the cap to the host as always.
Enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back next week for what should be an awesome week of sports with the Ryder Cup. Obviously, NFL and college action, but one of the best weekends of the year next week.
Yeah, dare I say next week will be the first megapod of the year.
Can't wait, bud.
All right, buddy.
Have a good one.